We have already established that secession is obviously the right of each individual or group. Here in part 3 of our discussion, we examine the mindset of those who would say otherwise. Let's take a look at King George III, who claimed the American colonies had no right to secede. Clearly, what he was really saying was, I am enjoying the taxes I am collecting from you, and I don't want it to stop. I am willing to send men with guns to force you to continue paying me, even though you don't want to. Clearly, the motivation is just selfish benefit. This is not surprising. What is surprising is these people never admit this obvious fact to themselves. They simply call the people who no longer perceive benefit from maintaining the relationship immoral or treasonous. How can it be immoral to peacefully exit a relationship you no longer enjoy? It's like an abusive husband who accuses his battered wife of being bad for not loving him enough because she wants to leave. The story running around in his head is that she owes him something. He has convinced himself that he should be the judge of her destiny and is entitled to force her to comply. This twisted reality generally is justified in his head by one of two premises. One, like any statist, he claims moral and intellectual superiority over her and convinces himself he is doing it for her good. Or two, like the slave master or monarch, he believes she is his property to do with as he sees fit, and it is immoral of the slave to declare their independence. To any rational person, these are just insane justifications for the immoral behavior of tyrants. King George III enjoyed his taxes and wanted to keep them, so he convinced himself he was ordained by God as the ruler of these people. Abusive husbands want free cooks, cleaners, and sex. Abusive parents want the experience of a power trip over a minion. Socialists want to put the responsibility of being productive onto others. And anti-secessionists enjoy the shared defense costs of living in a populous nation. So let's check the playbook of these tyrants. King George's first and least expensive line of defense was to convince the colonies they received some benefit for this relationship. Fear is an excellent weapon. The tyrant can explain how lawlessness will rule the land in the absence of his firm rule. Abusive husbands and parents tell their wives and children they will be alone, broke, and defenseless without them. Socialists explain that without the safety net of the state, crime rates will soar as unemployed people become desperate and beat you for a loaf of bread. The slave master explains he rescued the savage from the jungle and will teach the slave sophisticated living. As people realize these scare tactics are silly and there is no benefit to the relationship, the next least expensive option of the tyrant is to convince them they are immoral. The king called them treasonous. The abuser said, honor thy husband and father is God's law. The socialist said, you are selfish and do not care about your fellow man. And the slave master said, you are an inferior human and must obey me. And finally, when the subject realizes that it is the tyrant who is immoral, not them, that the master benefits from the relationship, not them, they find the courage to opt out. States secede, wives divorce, children run away from home, slaves escape, and productive people leave the socialist utopia. At which point the tyrant uses his last and most expensive weapon, force. Kings and governments send armies. Husbands beat their wives and parents beat their children. Socialists send tax collectors and close the borders to productive people trying to leave. And masters whip slaves. The person who claims secession is not a right is the tyrant, is the abusive husband, is the child beater, is the socialist, and is the slave owner. Born of pure selfishness, they seek to control other humans for their own benefit. Drowned in delusion and immorality, they claim moral virtue for enslaving others. I hope you enjoyed the 3 parts of episode 16 on secession. In episode 17, we will take the case study of Michael Moore as we examine the depth of indoctrination that government is godlike. I think you are going to love it.